We're joined again with On High Plains History. I've got a very special guest here in the studio to talk about kind of a hidden museum, I would say, here on the High Plains. I didn't know about it. I was actually over at Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center. We were doing a story, and we were walking. Megan was taking us to do an interview, and walked by it, and I was like, what is that? Oh, that's kind of cool. And so it's kind of been something that's kind of piqued my interest this whole time. So I want to first have you introduce yourself to everybody watching, and then we could talk a little bit about this kind of, I would say, like I said, a hidden gem that we have here on the High Plains. So first, introduce yourself to everybody watching.
Great. Thanks for having me. My name's Krystal Haase. I'm the Regional Dean for the Amarillo campus of the School of Pharmacy for TTUHSC. And one of my roles is to serve as the director of our museum space.
And so, we're talking about the Texas Pharmacy Museum. It's really cool. So tell me a little bit about like I said, the Jerry H. Hodge School of Pharmacy at the Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center has, like I said, a Texas Pharmacy Museum. So tell me a little bit about this museum.
So yes, we have a museum that's been in place for well over 25 years. We are nestled within the campus of the School of Pharmacy. We have over 10,000 artifacts or items that are part of our exhibit, and we're one of really a few pharmacy museums in the nation that are designed to represent and share and reflect on the history of our profession.
And so to start us off, I guess, what makes that museum unique compared to other historical museums, I guess, here on the High Plains? Because, you have Panhandle Plains Historical Museum that has, kind of the history of the High Plains. But what makes this pharmacy museum really unique?
So one of the things, like many pharmacy museums across the country, we have a model pharmacy that is set up so it looks like when you walk into the museum space, it's just like another pharmacy. But each one of those is a little different. What makes us unique is we also have a number of exhibits that celebrate the Texas Panhandle. And so we have a lot of donated artifacts from pharmacies that were part of our history here. So people who are from the area may recognize where some of these items have come from. In addition to that, we also have some elements of frontier medicine. So we have some great items in our exhibit that represent what medicines and pharmacy might have looked like in frontier times that are really unique. And we also have some that showcase how pharmacies may have supported the distribution of medicines to animals as well.
And so tell me a little bit about where it's located. I know it's, like I said, it's on the campus of Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center, but where is it located specifically? And then I guess why Amarillo?
Okay, so we'll start with the back part of that. So why Amarillo? So the School of Pharmacy for Texas Tech, so the Jerry H. Hodge School of Pharmacy, the main campus and the first campus were built and brought to the community in Amarillo. And so we had visions for the museum really from the get-go there. It is located on our academic campus, which is fantastic in some ways, provides some challenges because it is in an academic facility from an access standpoint. But the School of Pharmacy is located in the medical district. We're right across the street from two of our larger hospitals, and so we're pretty easy to find.
And so tell me a little bit about, again, because I know that it's kind of inside kind of the building a little bit. So tell me, like, where is it at, I guess, in the building? Because I know, because it was one of those things of, like, I had to walk by, and it was like one of those things where I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So where's it at, like, I guess
So we're in the basement,
okay, yeah.
Which is, it sounds terrible, but it's actually a beautiful large space. So we have several different rooms. But because we're an academic campus in modern times, people who are interested in visiting the museum would need to contact us to gain access because our campus, like many campuses these days, is locked to external visitors. But we have our curator on call at any time. If people want to access the museum, they just need to call in advance and get access to the building.
And so, for people, what can they see when they walk through that museum? Like you were talking about, they have, they can expect, frontier things, how pharmacy was in the frontier time. But what else can they see? Like, I think, I've seen some really cool, things of pharmacy, when I go to different museums and stuff like that. But what can they see? I mean, this is all about pharmacy. So what's some of the things can they see when they go through the museum?
Sure. Well, the first thing you're going to see when you walk into the museum is a traditional pharmacy setup space with floor-to-ceiling medications, compounding supplies and materials. So it probably represents late 18th, early 19th century pharmacy. We have compounding equipment. We have old prescription ledgers, compounding supplies, materials of all different shapes and sizes. We have some of the other sundries and things you might find in a traditional pharmacy that are for sale at the time. We have an amazing, really array of medicines. And so if you have an interest in science or just history, just the scope of medicines that we have on display is pretty phenomenal. In fact, one of my favorite things to do as a pharmacist is to go down and look at those. I'll pick different medicines from time to time. And, some of those things represent things, or they're things where medicines that we still use today are derived. And some, they're things that you would never imagine would be used as medicines when they were used initially. We would never want to take them today.
Yeah, but it kind of shows the history and kind of how we've progressed as a society on medicines we would take now. Like, things back in the day were like, I can't believe we actually would put that in our bodies. Yes,
we've had some of the things we've had to empty bottles because some of the things that were medicines are now poisons. And so it's actually really quite interesting.
That's crazy. And I know throughout the School of Pharmacy, you guys just have kind of displays throughout the School of Pharmacy of different items and stuff like that, which is really cool to walk through the School of Pharmacy and to see, glass cases of different artifacts kind of laid out through the School of Pharmacy. And then, of course, when you go down to the museum, of course, there's, a whole museum dedicated, which is really cool that you guys have done that through the School of Pharmacy. What does it mean for you guys to do that in general, just to have these kind of artifacts laid out through the School of Pharmacy?
Well, I think it's important. I think it's important for our students both to engage with the museum space and to see, as well as our visitors, because it connects you with your heritage. And so knowing the profession that you came from, how it started, how it's progressed over time, and that you're now going to be a part of that longstanding tradition is really cool. And in fact, we have recently, over the past 2 years, started offering pharmacy camps in the summer, and we do a variety of things during those camps, but one of the things that's really integral is bringing those high school students into that museum space. And in fact, this last year, we actually added a scavenger hunt element so that not only would they view the museum, but they can actually engage with the items and learn more actively while they're there.
Yeah, and that touches on a point here. How does that museum connect with pharmacy students, especially those applying to the Amarillo campus? I know that's kind of a big point that you guys have, where if you're applying, the pharmacy kind of plays a role in that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. So for pharmacy students, we feel it's really important that we bring them on campus, and in fact, we have interviews this Friday. But one of the elements that we try to include in that or in other campus tours is a taste or an experience of that museum. And then later on, as they progress through different aspects of their career, we revisit the museum space. Sometimes we have students who are interested in delving more into history of pharmacy and medicines and want to involve things that are on display as part of projects and activities. And so that museum was also set up originally as a laboratory where not only the curator or other members of our team can review and explore and research history, but students who want to engage in that have the opportunity to do that as well.
Yeah, and how important is it for those students who want to become a pharmacist, want to get into the profession, know the history and know the background of pharmacy and just the history of pharmacy?
I think knowing the history is really important. Pharmacy has looked different at different times. Pharmacists have been around forever. We know that there were apothecaries. That was, I guess, I don't know what the original terms were back in the day, but there is evidence of pharmacy roles as far back as Egypt or Mesopotamia, so a long time ago. Those roles largely involved compounding medicines, tailoring prescriptions, as you would say, or potions or things to individuals for use. They knew herbals, they knew natural products very, very well. Those roles really progressed into the U.S., into early pharmacy. Most medicines early on were still compounded. And so over time, as we've had more involvement of industry, as you know, most of the medications that people take today are pre-made to high-level industrial standards. So there were different times when pharmacists were more a distributor of those products. And now, knowing that history helps us prepare students not only for those continuing roles, there's been a resurgence of tailoring medicines to individual patients, which is exciting, but also our new roles as being much more integrally involved in the team-based delivery of healthcare to patients. And so being involved in one-on-one relationships to help optimize medicines, so roles that are more related to the patient and maybe less related to the product itself.
Yeah, and you touched on my next point I was going to ask you is kind of talk a little bit about the history of pharmacy and how it's evolved from, what what pharmacy started off as to what pharmacists are now. Tell me a little bit about kind of the history of that.
Sure.
Pharmacy.
So pharmacists, like I said, there was a time when pharmacists had a lot of autonomy. They would meet with individuals. They were apothecaries at that time, and they would craft medicines from raw chemical compounds. So pharmacists then really had to know their game in terms of chemistry and math and science. And then over time, and for good reasons, because again, the industrialization of pharmacy has also provided safety, standardization, and affordability, but the mass production of medications has led to a change in the pharmacist's role. So they weren't involved as much in that. They were more involved in distribution of medications, so filling prescriptions as you would traditionally see, counting medications, handing them out. Pharmacists now have a lot more roles, and it's a challenge because a lot of that's behind the scenes. Individuals don't see it. And so ensuring that patients who are taking a number of medications, those regimens, when you put them together, are still safe, that they're not going to get into any issues with medication use, making sure patients know how to take their medications, encouraging them to take them, so keeping them motivated to stay on their game because we know they can improve health. In some settings, working alongside of physicians and nurses to optimize those. So if a patient has high blood pressure, they may start with the physician or other provider, and then the fine-tuning, the motivation, the making sure the medication dose is right, and that the patient's doing everything else in their power to optimize that therapy. Those are examples of modern roles of pharmacy. And there are similar roles like that in other aspects, oncology, the hospital setting. Pharmacists play a lot of different roles there as well. And so really it's been exciting to watch the profession grow and change and see through challenges.
Wow. And so tell me a little bit about, being beyond that museum. How does, you kind of touched on it a little bit. How does it serve as just a research center and a laboratory too? The museum, how does that serve also as a research center and a laboratory?
So from a research standpoint, pharmacists always, that's another role I didn't touch on, is we answer a lot of questions. And so sometimes we get questions on, what is this really old item? What is this used for? And so sometimes going back into the museum archives is beneficial for that. Looking at the museum as from the standpoint of just researching history. We've had students, for example, we wanted to look into how mercury was used historically in treatments. Again, something you would never, we're told now we don't even touch mercury, mercury's bad. But we used to use it in medicines, and so we have a lot of not only information we have information archives as well that we can access, but we actually have products that we can use for illustrative purposes related to that as well that tell a story. And they tell us things about the limited resources that we had at the time and moving forward, the advances and how things have changed. And so mercury, as an example, was used to treat infections, and thank goodness we have many other newer medications that are used to target infections and things at this point, so that we don't have to use things like that.
Yeah, thank goodness that we've kind of, again, we've kind of talked about this. We've moved on from certain things that we don't have to use anymore. So again, I guess, how important is it for this the community and future pharmacists to have a place like the Texas Pharmacy Museum they can go to and again see how we have progressed, and again have taken things like mercury out and just moved on, and then but also see where we have come from and see the role that a pharmacist plays, in our everyday health that we have, whether it's whether we have a cold and we're taking cold medicine or something like that, but just everyday life that we have. How important is it for people to go to the pharmacy museum and just explore that?
Well, I think having a good understanding of our history in general is important for anyone, regardless of what area you're looking at. And we have a lot of great resources in the Amarillo area. And, some of those are well known and some are lesser known. And so I think for folks that have any interest in medicines or science or chemistry or areas like that, I think it's a great opportunity. We have a lot of individuals who knew pharmacists in the area in our community, starting, from the top of the Panhandle down through Lubbock. And so we have things from those pharmacies that have been given to us over time that give you not only, it just gives you some respect for the history, individuals that started pharmacies in our community back when the community was much smaller, and how those have changed over time. It gives us a way to connect with our past as well as the profession. And a lot of people don't know as much about pharmacy as some of the more forward-facing professions, beyond maybe what they see on TV, which is always a little bit more of a traditional role for pharmacies. So it gives you a chance to share those things with the community.
And so, what's one of your favorite items in the museum? Do you have a favorite item in the museum?
I do not have a favorite item in the museum, but there are a number that are just really fascinating to me. I think some of the ways we use to fight infections, and then some of the things that we use to treat heart disease. So those are the two areas that I actually teach in, and so I teach on angina, so managing pain, chest pain for patients is one of my subjects. And so to me, what fascinates me is the things we used to use. And so that's another, odd element, because one of the things we used to use was strychnine. And we definitely don't use that anymore. For heart failure, we use digitalis. That one we still use. And so seeing how those things have changed, what those older substances, they were the best we could do at the time, how they worked in the body, and how those compared to newer things. We have a lot of random odds and ends too, and I couldn't even begin to describe those. We have some are just really cool bottles. We have a beautiful collection of the apothecary globes they're just wonderful to look at. My other favorite is a traveling case. It's not technically for pharmacy, but it was a traveling case from physicians. And so if you were a physician who had to provide medicines in frontier times in the Texas Panhandle, you might have to give things through needles. You can't carry supplies of those things with you. Now most of those items would be in a refrigerator. And so we have basically these cases full of what we would call hypodermic tablets. And so they're little tiny tablets that were dissolved in alcohol at the time. I'm sure it's whatever alcohol they had on hand, and then injected into patients. And the fact that they could carry that many medications in such a tiny space was really fascinating to me.
Really cool. So tell me a little bit about when people visit. How can they visit the museum? When can they go? How can they do it? What do they need to do? Do they need to bring something? How can they go visit the museum?
So the museum is free of charge. So this is something that we provide as a service to the community. And our hours are Tuesday to Friday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. That said, we are also able, if someone can't meet those hours, to have individuals schedule time separate from that. So our curators are very flexible in working with individuals in terms of providing guided tours. Because we're on campus and it's a closed campus, we do need to know you're coming. And so please reach out and contact the museum curator at the number that we have ahead of time. But beyond that, there's nothing special you need to bring, just yourselves.
And you talked about summer camps too. Talk to me a little bit about those summer camps a little bit as well. Talk to me a little about providing those summer camps that you guys have been doing.
Sure. So we provide summer camps. It's usually the last week in June, and those are 3 to 4 days, and we cover all elements and aspects of pharmacy. So a lot of it's all hands-on. We do a lot of exposure to different pharmacy careers, different pharmacy skills. We play around with the medications and teach things as well in a fun manner. But we also we do some medication safety training, and we expose individuals to some pharmacies that are off of our campus that are in the near areas in the community as well as the museum space.
And so if, you talk about getting high school students out there and stuff like that. So if a school wants to come out and visit, wants to come out to the museum, how can they do that? Can the same thing, just reach out to the museum, reach out to you guys and say, hey, we want to come out. We want to get these high school students maybe, involved, or we want to show them what the museum has to offer. Is it the same thing?
Yeah, we would love to have students come to our space. We have some size capacity, so when we bring students on, we do have guided tours of our entire school. Sometimes we have to split split those groups up. But certainly for smaller groups, we're definitely well adapted to that. For those types of tours that need to have a little bit more coordination, individuals would reach out to my office for contact.
All right. Well, again, this is a fascinating. I've been wanting to talk to somebody about this pharmacy museum since I first saw it, because I walked by and I was like, okay, we got to talk about that, but we had to keep moving because we were going to an interview, and I was like, okay, I got to find out more about the pharmacy museum. I was like, I didn't even know we had that. This is very cool. So I'm glad we were able to sit down and talk about the Texas Pharmacy Museum, because I think it's fascinating. Just again, like you were talking about, just how we've moved on from certain things to where we're at now, about how we treat people with medicines and stuff like that. It's just a fascinating topic. Again, a wealth of knowledge. And again, we have so many museums here in the Panhandle that people can go visit, go see, and it's just fascinating.
You should definitely come in and take a look sometime.
Absolutely, 100%. Again, thanks for joining us here on High Plains History. It's always a pleasure to have guests that have wealth of knowledge.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks again.